One of the mysteries to me when I've looked at recent time trials, and I've been looking at them for a number of years, is that several of the riders have adopted this habit of sliding themselves back on the saddle continually. And Contador, as we see here, is one of the main offenders. He will simply slide forward between 5 and 10 centimeters, work his way forward, and then shove himself to the back edge of the saddle. Now, all things being equal, it seems to me that if the rider was set up so they didn't have to do this, that he would be faster. Looking at Contador here in a different time trial, this one the Dauphiné, we can see him doing the same thing. And I've seen him doing this since last year in every time trial I've looked at. See himself working forward on the saddle, 5, 7, 8, 10 centimeters, and then shoving himself back. Let's look at that again. As I said, there are some other riders that I've also seen doing this. Here's Roman Kreuziger. We can see the same thing. He's worked himself halfway up the saddle. There he goes. Just shoved himself back. Now immediately he starts working himself down the saddle. Boom. Shoves himself back. Let's look at that again. Here's one of someone who's not known as a very good time trial. It's the climber Castro Viejo from Euskaltel, and you can see he's doing the same thing here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pedal strokes, something like that. He's halfway up the saddle, and he shoves himself back. We even catch old Dave Zabriskie doing it here, too. Now, he, of course, is really far forward up on the nose of that saddle, which is historically where he has ridden, but we just see right there him shoving himself back. Now maybe he doesn't have to do it as much as the other guys because of liberal application of DZ nuts chamois cream. Who knows? Maybe that's the secret. But in any case. So one interesting consideration here from a bike fit perspective about this constant sliding forward and sliding back, besides it looking very uncomfortable and not very efficient, is that when you're talking about this much forward movement, you're talking about, there in Contador's case, we're talking about 7, 8 centimeters probably of forward slide in the forwardmost point from the rearmost, certainly 5 or 6. So what that does is that effectively decreases his saddle height by pushing 2 centimeters, which is pretty substantial, especially when you have guys like Armstrong who claim that they can tell if their saddle height's off by 1 millimeter. So these guys are effectively dropping their saddle height a great deal as they slide forward on the saddle. Now, what is the reason for this? Well, I think we got a couple things going on here. Of course, we have the infamous UCI rule where the saddle has to be 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket, the saddle nose does. So that puts the saddles in a relatively slack position for time trialing. These guys all tend to be in fairly aggressive positions, very horizontal torsos. So, which of course makes for a very tight hip angle, especially when you're sitting way back behind the bottom bracket at, in the rearward position, depending on the saddle height of the rider in question, you're looking at a 73 to 75 degree seat angle in a lot of cases when that saddle nose is 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. So that's fairly slack. So these guys, I think, naturally, their bodies naturally want them to slide forward on the saddle. And of course, we do see some riders like, Zabriskie, we did show him sliding back, but in general, he tends to sit up on the nose like this for the majority of the ride, and there are several other riders that do that. because that opens up his hip angle a little more and, should be better for generating power. But the question, that comes up here is at what point is somebody like Contador, at what point on the saddle are they at the quote-unquote right saddle height? And it looks to me, based on knee angle measures and based on the fact that he keeps pushing himself back, that when he is toward the rear of the saddle is the quote-unquote right saddle height, the right knee angles. When he slides forward, even though now his hip angle's improved some, his saddle height is now up to 2 centimeters lower effectively, and it's really, I think, too low. So I think what we have going on here is that in this rearward position we probably have the proper saddle height here. And it's also probably more comfortable as far as, in the taint area there. It's probably a lot more comfortable for most riders to be back here. But as he rides, his body works itself forward in an attempt to open up that hip angle a little bit. But at the same time, it's effectively lowering his saddle height to a potentially too low setting. And now he's way up on the nose, not too comfortable, maybe a position that's going to create some numbness, and so he's going to slide himself back. So we could have that type of thing going on. Could also be just the fact that the constant forward and back movement actually helps prevent numbness and loss of blood flow there to the saddle contact, the perineal area. And so, he actually prefers to have to move back and forth constantly just because it's better than being numb or in constant pain the whole time. But it's, it's pretty interesting to me, and I think the question is still open as to, where do these guys set their saddles? Where do they measure their saddle height? Do they measure it in the full back position, or do they measure it in the forward, the sliding forward position? And like I said, in this case, he looks like he's borderline too low to me in the forward sliding position. So, it's just, I think it's still kind of an open question in my mind as to exactly, why a rider like Contador would be set up so that he constantly does this versus finding a position, a saddle, etc., that would, allow him to sit at the proper hip angle and the proper saddle height and still maintain some level of comfort in doing so. And by the way, it doesn't appear to be an issue where the saddle is tilted down, and that's why these guys are sliding forward, because when you look at the shots of them when they stand up out of the saddles actually do tend to be pretty darn level, like in a standard road position. So there doesn't appear to be a situation where the saddle is sloped and the rider is sliding off because of his weight sliding down the saddle. So anyway, interesting question here. I don't know about you, but it does kind of hurts me to watch Contador doing this back and forth. I'd love to hear from him why he's set up this way, and why he doesn't change it so he doesn't have to do it all the time.